The day my son Jackson was getting married should have been the proudest moment of my life. For 25 years, I had raised him alone, working overtime shifts at construction sites to give him everything he needed. As I straightened my tie, the first one I had worn in years, I could not wait to watch him start his new life. But when I arrived at the reception hall, my heart stopped. There at my assigned seat was a nameplate that read Russell Bennett, low-educated fake dad. The bride's family was already snickering. Hey everyone, before I continue this wild story, let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like and subscribe. If you have ever stood tall against people who tried to make you feel small. I never planned on being a single father. Life just happens that way sometimes. 25 years ago, I was a young guy with dreams of finishing college and becoming an architect. Then my wife Karen got pregnant with Jackson, and everything changed, but in the best way possible. I dropped out after my sophomore year to work construction so we could start saving for a family home. When Jackson was just 3 years old, Karen decided family life was not for her. I came home from a double shift to find a note on the kitchen table, and her closet emptied out. No warning, no discussion, just gone. She moved across the country with some guy she met at her office, and we never heard from her again. Just like that, it was me and my boy against the world. Those first few years were the hardest. I worked my way up to construction foreman, but the hours were brutal. I would wake up at 4 in the morning, drop Jackson off at my neighbor Mrs. Garcia's apartment before her shift at the hospital, then head to work. After my regular shift ended, I would often take on overtime or weekend jobs to make ends meet. We lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood that was not great but not terrible either. What mattered was that Jackson was safe and had everything he needed. I turned down 3 promotions that would have meant more money but required travel. How could I leave my boy alone for days at a time? The company offered to relocate us to projects in other states too, but Jackson needed stability. So I stayed put, kept my head down, and made the most of what we had. What we lacked in fancy vacations or the newest toys we made up for in our traditions. Every Sunday morning without fail, we made pancakes together. Jackson would mix the batter while I heated the griddle. By the time he was 10, he could flip them better than I could. We had this beat-up 1989 Ford Mustang that I bought as a project car when Jackson was 12. For 3 years, we spent every other Saturday in the garage fixing it up together. I taught him everything I knew about engines, and he would read repair manuals cover to cover, teaching me things I never knew. Each summer, no matter how tight money was, we would take 1 week off for our fishing trip to Lake Michigan. We would camp right on the shore, cook our catch over an open fire, and talk about everything and nothing under the stars. Those moments, that was real wealth. Despite our modest means, Jackson was brilliant in school. He had this natural talent for math and science that certainly did not come from me. By high school, he was tutoring seniors, while only a freshman himself. When he graduated as valedictorian, I cannot even describe the pride that filled my chest. Standing in the back of that auditorium in my only dress shirt, watching him give his speech, I thought I might burst. Then came the college acceptance letters. Not just 1 or 2, but 7, all with scholarship offers. The best one came from Westmore University, a prestigious engineering program that would cover tuition and books. I had saved enough to help with his first semester of housing and expenses, but the scholarship was what made it possible. The night before he left for college, we sat on our apartment balcony drinking root beer from bottles like we always did on special occasions. "Dad," he said, looking out at the city lights, "everything I am is because of you." I tried to brush it off, saying something about how he did all the hard work himself, but he would not let it go. "No, seriously," he insisted. "You showed me what it means to work hard and never give up. I watched you go without things you wanted so I could have what I needed. That is the most important education anyone could have." I am not too proud to admit, I cried that night after he went to bed. It was during his junior year at Westmore that he met Stephanie Palmer. The first time he mentioned her name, his voice changed. I could hear something different, something serious. After a month of hearing about this amazing, beautiful, brilliant girl in his advanced physics class, he finally asked if he could bring her home for dinner. I spent all day cleaning our apartment, even buying a tablecloth for our small kitchen table. When they arrived, I knew immediately that Stephanie came from money. It was not just her designer clothes or the way she carried herself. It was the slight surprise in her eyes when she saw our modest home. But she was gracious and kind, complimenting the lasagna I had made from my mother's recipe and asking genuine questions about my work. A month later, Jackson asked if I would join them for dinner at Stephanie's parents' house. That was when I got my first taste of the world Stephanie came from. The Palmers lived in a mansion in the wealthiest part of town, the kind of place with a circular driveway and columns at the entrance. Harold Palmer was a renowned cardiovascular surgeon, and Margaret Palmer was a dean at an exclusive private college. Their dining room table could have fit my entire apartment. That dinner was uncomfortable from start to finish. Harold examined my calloused hands when we shook, making a comment about honest work that sounded more like an insult than a compliment. When Jackson used the correct fork for his salad, Margaret looked surprised. "My what refined manners," she said, glancing at me. "Where did you learn proper etiquette, Jackson?" "From my dad," Jackson replied smoothly. "He always said, 'Respect shows in the details.'" I had never said that exact phrase in my life, but I appreciated his loyalty. Throughout dinner, I tried to connect with them by sharing stories about Jackson growing up, his science fair projects, his first home-built computer, his volunteer work at the local library. Each story was met with polite nods and quick redirections to questions about his future plans and career prospects. On the drive home, Jackson apologized for his future in-laws' behavior. "They will warm up to you, Dad. They just need time to see what I see." I squeezed his shoulder. "Hey, do not worry about me. I am just happy you found someone who makes you smile like she does." The truth was, I was worried. Not about their money or status, but about whether I would be accepted as family. Still, I kept those thoughts to myself. Jackson's happiness was what mattered most. In the months leading up to the wedding, I saw less and less of Jackson as he was absorbed into Stephanie's world. When we did talk, it was often about wedding plans that seemed to grow more elaborate by the day. I saved every extra penny, taking on weekend jobs, and even selling my beloved fishing gear to buy a proper suit for the big day. After 3 months of extra work, I purchased a navy blue suit from a discount store. It was not designer, but it was the best I could afford, and I was proud to wear it for my son. The night before the wedding, my brother Frank called to check in. He was the only family I had left after our parents passed, but he lived across the country and could not make it to the wedding due to health issues. "How are you holding up with those fancy in-laws?" he asked. "They are different," I admitted. "But Jackson loves their daughter, and that is all that matters. Just remember, Russ, you raised that boy into a man any father would be proud of. Do not let anyone make you feel less than what you are." I needed that reminder more than I knew. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear. I stood in my apartment adjusting my tie in the bathroom mirror. 25 years of parenthood flashed through my mind: Jackson's first steps, first day of school, first heartbreak, high school graduation. Now he was starting his own family, and despite all my worries about fitting in with the Palmers' pride, overwhelmed everything else. I had splurged on a professional haircut the day before, and the navy blue suit looked better than I expected. The salesman had thrown in a pocket square for free after I told him what the occasion was. Small kindnesses like that still get me every time. The drive to Lakeview Country Club took 40 minutes. As I turned into the long, winding entrance road, I felt increasingly out of place. The parking lot was filled with luxury vehicles, Mercedes, BMWs, even a couple of Bentleys. I parked my 10-year-old Ford pickup at the far end of the lot, hoping it would not be too noticeable. The venue itself was something out of a magazine. Crystal chandeliers hung from vaulted ceilings. The floors were polished marble. Elaborate flower arrangements larger than my coffee table stood at every entrance. I paused in the main doorway, suddenly uncertain where to go. A woman in an expensive-looking dress approached, carrying a gift bag. "Excuse me," she said, looking me up and down. "Where should I place the gifts? I am sorry, I do not work here," I replied, trying to keep my voice friendly. "I am actually." "Oh," her cheeks flushed. "I just assumed. I am so sorry." She hurried away before I could respond. I had barely taken 2 more steps when another guest approached me. "Are you someone's driver?" he asked, keys extended. "Can you tell me where valet parking is?" "No, sir. I am the father of the groom," I said, forcing a smile. His face registered shock, then embarrassment. "Oh, my apologies. I had no idea." The ceremony is through those doors, I believe. The actual wedding coordinator finally directed me to the family section after I explained who I was. There was a special seating area reserved for immediate family with the first two rows divided between the bride's and groom's sides. The Palmer side was already filling up with well-dressed relatives. My side had exactly one chair mine. I made my way to my assigned seat, nodding politely at the Palmer family members who barely acknowledged me. Then I saw it. The nameplate on my chair that read Russell Bennett, low-educated fake dad. My face burned hot. My hands started shaking. A knot formed in my stomach so tight I could barely breathe. At first I thought it must be a mistake or a terrible prank, but then I heard laughter from behind me. "So that is the handyman who raised Stephanie's charity case," a man said in a stage whisper. I recognized him as Harold's brother from photos Jackson had shown me. I stood frozen, staring at the nameplate. In that moment, a flood of memories hit me. Jackson at age 9, his arm broken from falling off his bike. Me working through pneumonia for 2 weeks straight because we needed the money for his medical bills. Helping him build his 8th grade science fair project after a 14-hour workday, both of us exhausted, but determined to finish it right. Every sacrifice, every moment of exhaustion, every penny saved, all of it done with love. And here I was being mocked by people who had never known a day of struggle. I considered making a scene, walking out, confronting Harold. But what would that accomplish? This was Jackson's wedding day. I could not ruin this moment for him, no matter how much I was hurting. So I quietly removed the nameplate, slipped it into my jacket pocket as evidence, and sat down with my head held high. Throughout the ceremony, I battled my emotions. The chapel was beautiful, with sunlight streaming through stained glass windows. When Jackson appeared at the altar, handsome in his tuxedo, my chest swelled with pride despite everything. During the vows, he glanced over at me, and I managed to give him a genuine smile. Whatever happened with the Palmers, nothing could diminish what my son and I shared. After the ceremony, guests moved to the reception hall. I noticed my seat had been relocated to a table far from the main family area near the kitchen doors. More subtle humiliation. Again, I chose dignity over confrontation for Jackson's sake. I watched as Stephanie and Jackson shared their first dance. They moved beautifully together, her white gown flowing around them. Jackson had taken dance lessons secretly for months to prepare for this moment. Even from a distance, I could see the joy on his face. That made everything worthwhile. Next came the father-daughter dance between Stephanie and Harold. He cut an impressive figure in his tailored tuxedo, leading his daughter confidently around the floor while guests applauded. Then the DJ announced it was time for the mother-son dance. Since Jackson's mother had never been part of his life, we had arranged for me to step in. We had practiced to My Hero by Foo Fighters, his choice, which had nearly broken me when he suggested it. As we moved onto the dance floor, Jackson immediately sensed something was wrong. He had always been able to read me like that. "Dad, what is it?" he asked quietly as we started to move to the music. "Nothing, son. Just emotional." "Proud of you," I deflected. "No. Something is bothering you. Tell me. Please." I shook my head. "Not today. This is your day." After our dance ended, Jackson insisted on getting me a drink himself. He walked me back to my table, and that was when he saw that I had been placed far from the family section. His brow furrowed. "Why are you sitting all the way back here?" Before I could answer, he set down our drinks and noticed the empty place card holder. "Where is your nameplate?" I hesitated, then slowly reached into my jacket pocket and handed it to him. His face changed as he read it, shock, disbelief, then a controlled anger I had rarely seen in him. "Who did this?" he asked, his voice deadly calm. "It does not matter, Jackson. Let it go. It was her father, was not it?" I did not answer, which was answer enough. Without another word, Jackson walked straight to Harold, who was chatting with some colleagues near the head table. I followed, trying to stop what I knew was coming. "Did you do this?" Jackson held up the nameplate, keeping his voice low but intense. Harold glanced at it, then shrugged. "Come now, Jackson. It was just a harmless joke. Your father should lighten up." "A joke," Jackson repeated. "You think humiliating my father on my wedding day is funny. Perhaps your father is being a bit sensitive," Harold said dismissively. "Now is not the time to make a scene." Jackson looked at me, then at the nameplate, then around at all the guests enjoying themselves oblivious to our confrontation. I saw him make a decision. "You are right about one thing," he said to Harold. "Now is exactly the time." Before I could stop him, Jackson walked over to the DJ booth and whispered something. The music stopped abruptly. He took the microphone and the room fell silent. "I want to thank everyone for coming today." Jackson began, his voice steady. "Stephanie and I are so grateful for your presence. But there is something I need to address." He held up the nameplate. "This was placed at my father's seat today. For those who cannot see it, reads, Russell Bennett, low-educated fake dad. I want to tell you all exactly who Russell Bennett really is." My heart raced as Jackson continued. "This man worked 3 separate jobs to pay for my college applications. When I was in high school, he would come home from 12-hour shifts covered in dirt and concrete dust and still sit down to help me with my homework. He never missed a single parent-teacher conference, school play, or baseball game. Not one, even when it meant losing pay or sleep." The room was completely silent now. I could feel hundreds of eyes on me. When I got accepted to Westmore, my dad had already saved for years to help with my first semester's expenses, even though he knew I had a scholarship coming. He put aside $20 from each paycheck, since I was in middle school, sometimes going without lunch himself, to make it happen. Jackson's voice grew stronger. "My father taught me that education is not just about degrees. It is about integrity, work ethic, and treating people with respect. He showed me that being a man means taking responsibility and keeping your promises. Everything I have accomplished is because of the foundation he built." I saw Stephanie rise from her seat and walk to Jackson's side. She took the microphone. "Russell has welcomed me into his home and his heart from day one," she said. "He has shown me what unconditional love looks like. I am proud to call him my father-in-law." Harold stood uncomfortably near the bar, his face flushed. Margaret looked mortified, staring at the floor. Several guests were openly glaring at them now. Jackson took the microphone back. "So I want to restart this wedding the right way. Dad, let's move your seat to where it belongs, at the head table with the family you created through love and sacrifice." The room erupted in applause as Jackson and Stephanie led me to the head table. I was overwhelmed, torn between pride in my son's loyalty and discomfort at being the center of attention. As we walked, guests reached out to pat my shoulder or shake my hand. The rest of the reception unfolded in a way I never could have imagined. My place setting was moved to the head table between Jackson and Stephanie. Throughout the evening, several of Stephanie's relatives approached with genuine apologies. "I had no idea what your son shared about you," one of Stephanie's aunts said. "Harold never mentioned you raised Jackson alone." Stephanie's grandmother, a elegant woman in her 80s, sat beside me for nearly 20 minutes. "I grew up poor in rural Kentucky," she confided. "Worked in factories most of my life before marrying into the Palmer family. Harold has forgotten where this family's work ethic came from. You have raised a remarkable young man, Russell." Even Harold eventually approached, though I suspect only because he had to save face. "Perhaps my joke was in poor taste," he said stiffly. "I apologize if offense was taken. Not exactly a heartfelt apology, but I accepted it graciously." "I appreciate that, Harold. What matters now is supporting Jackson and Stephanie as they start their life together." Later in the evening, Jackson and Stephanie modified their planned reception speech to include words about judging character by actions rather than credentials or bank accounts. The message was clear without being confrontational. I could not have been prouder of their maturity. When it came time for toasts, I had not planned to speak, but with encouragement from Jackson, I stood and raised my glass. To Jackson and Stephanie, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "May you build a life together, founded on mutual respect, honest work, and the knowledge that true wealth is measured in love, not dollars. I have been blessed to be your father, Jackson, and now I am doubly blessed to welcome Stephanie into our family." As I sat down, Stephanie leaned over and hugged me tight. "Thank you, Dad," she whispered the first time she had called me that. Something shifted in that moment, a new beginning. The Sunday after they returned from their honeymoon, Jackson and Stephanie came to my apartment for dinner. I had spent all day making my special lasagna. To my surprise, they brought news of their own. They wanted to host the first Thanksgiving as a married couple, and they insisted I help plan the menu. "My family always has the same catered meal," Stephanie explained, But Jackson tells me your Thanksgivings were always special. Nothing fancy, I admitted, but everything made from scratch. That is exactly what we want, she said firmly. When Thanksgiving arrived 5 months later, our small family traditions merged with the Palmers' more formal ones. Harold actually complimented my craftsmanship after noticing the bookshelves I had built for Jackson years ago, which now stood in their living room. You do excellent work, he said, examining the joinery. Where did you learn these skills? My father taught me the basics, I told him. The rest I learned through years of practice and a lot of mistakes. Something changed in his expression, perhaps, the first genuine respect I had seen from him. 6 months after the wedding, Jackson and Stephanie announced they were expecting a baby. The thought of becoming a grandfather filled me with a joy I had not felt in years. As I helped them convert their spare room into a nursery, building a crib with my own hands, I reflected on the full circle of fatherhood I was experiencing. The wedding incident gave me something unexpected, a renewed sense of purpose. I enrolled in a community college carpentry certification program, not because I needed the credentials after 30 years in construction, but because I wanted the formal recognition of my skills. It was time to stop measuring my worth by other people's standards and embrace my own path. The true education in life, I have learned, comes not from books or degrees, but from overcoming challenges, loving others selflessly, and standing tall in the face of judgment. My victory was not in confrontation, but in living well, raising a son who understood what really matters. As I look forward to meeting my grandchild, I am filled with hope for this new chapter. The family wounds are healing slowly but surely. What matters is that we move forward together with respect for each path that brought us to this point. Have you ever had to stand tall against people who tried to make you feel small? How did you handle it? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story about standing up for what truly matters, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life experiences. Share this with someone who might need a reminder that their worth is not determined by others' opinions. Thank you for listening. And remember, the most important education comes from how we treat each other. See you in the next story.